In 2020 CE, during the Three Kingdoms Civil War, Zhuge Liang formulated a rule. By the end of this video, you will possess 5 tests to reveal someone's true intentions. 3 unread messages sit on your phone from a charming new business partner. An ambitious colleague smiles across a glass conference table. Why do intelligent people consistently misplace their trust? Politeness is cheap, but charm is easily rehearsed in calm waters. Anyone can perform loyalty when the sun is shining and profits are rising. When stakes climb and pressure mounts, manufactured loyalty cracks. Instead of spotting the danger early, you wake up 6 months later betrayed, wondering how you missed the warning signs. Now step into a modern executive boardroom at 8 in the morning. An executive sits across from a newly hired senior manager. The new hire has an impeccable resume, polished manners, and a warm handshake. He nods attentively at every word and praises the leadership team. Yet beneath that flawless smile lies a calculating opportunist. He has already begun taking credit for junior colleagues' work. He aligns himself only with winning initiatives while quietly shifting blame for difficult projects. Because the company evaluates people only on polished surface interviews, they promote him. As a result, 12 months later, his department implodes in toxic politics and catastrophic turnover. The critical leverage point is this: you cannot evaluate character through polite conversation. You can only observe true loyalty when you apply controlled psychological friction that strips away their rehearsed persona. Hold that distinction in your mind. In a moment, we will see how Zhuge Liang diagnosed treachery before a single battle began. We will come back to this exact diagnostic across 5 tests, and that is where the first test begins. To understand why Zhuge Liang's diagnostic framework is ruthless, look at the brutal world that created it. Zhuge Liang, known as the Sleeping Dragon, served as chancellor and supreme military commander of Shu Han. He operated in an era where alliances dissolved overnight and brothers betrayed brothers for land. Liang realized that the greatest danger to a commander was not the enemy army across the river. Rather, the greatest danger was the flattering advisor inside his own tent. In his classic military treatise, Zhang Yuan, The Way of the General, Liang laid down a fundamental principle. Human character is difficult to know. The virtuous may appear clumsy, while the wicked may appear refined. Therefore, you must subject them to controlled conditions to see what lies beneath. Liang designed 5 psychological stress tests. Each test places an individual under a specific form of pressure: moral ambiguity, intellectual challenge, strategic dilemma, sudden crisis, and lowered social inhibition. Under these conditions, public manners fail. The ego cannot maintain its mask. What emerges is the raw, unedited truth of their loyalty and character. Slow down here and notice what happens when you apply this lens. Keep that framework in mind as we proceed. Watch what happens next as we deconstruct the first test. A person's character is invisible in comfort. Probe them with right and wrong to observe their principles. In the first test, Zhuge Liang would present a prospective officer with an ambiguous ethical dilemma. He would deliberately outline a course of action that was advantageous and profitable, but morally compromised. He watched whether the candidate was seduced by convenience or anchored by principle. Notice the contrast between weakness and the master. The opportunist rationalizes. When presented with an easy, dishonorable path, they immediately search for loopholes, excuses, and justifications. As a result, they reveal that their loyalty belongs entirely to their personal gain. The sovereign strategist refuses to compromise. When offered an expedient advantage that violates their integrity, they reject it without hesitation. Even if refusal brings immediate hardship, consider a modern business scenario. You present a hypothetical scenario to a potential business partner. We could cut this corner on our client disclosures and save $40,000 this quarter. Watch their immediate facial reaction. If their eyes light up and they say, "That sounds smart, let's do it," you have received your answer. They will cut corners against you the moment circumstances tighten. Here is the tactical protocol for test 1. Present a gray area ethical choice during early conversations. Do not judge what they say they believe. Observe what they are willing to compromise for convenience. That is the first of 5 tests. More on that when we examine the second test. What comes next in the second test reveals how they handle intellectual conflict. Politeness and calm conversation proves nothing. Press them into an intellectual corner to observe their composure. In the second test, Zhuge Liang engaged an officer in rigorous debate. He would deliberately challenge their premises, expose logical flaws, and push their arguments to the absolute limit. He was not testing whether they were right or wrong on the facts. Rather, he was testing how their ego reacted to being challenged. Notice the contrast between weakness and the master. The weak person becomes emotional, defensive, and sarcastic. When their logic collapses, they resort to personal attacks, passive aggression, or sulking silence. As a result, they prove that their ego is more important than the truth. The master remains centered and curious. When shown a flaw in their reasoning, they smile, adjust their perspective, and say, "You are correct. I had not considered that angle. Let us build the better solution." If you find value in these strategic character frameworks, take a moment to subscribe and swim with us at MindKoi. Consider a modern workplace dispute. You question a manager's timeline during a project review in an office meeting. If they immediately raise their voice, cross their arms, and shut down discussion, you are looking at a fragile ego. When real crisis hits, they will protect their reputation rather than solving the problem. Here is the tactical protocol for test 2. Respectfully push back on someone's strongly held opinion. Watch whether they lean into the argument with logic or attack the relationship with defensiveness. That is the second of 5 tests. Before we get to the third test, remember that intellect without courage is useless, and that is where the third test begins. A person without clear vision will always drag your venture into mediocrity. Consult them on strategy to observe their courage. Zhuge Liang would bring complex, ambiguous geopolitical dilemmas to his subordinates. He would ask, "The enemy controls the high ground, and our supplies are running low. How should we proceed?" He observed how their mind structured reality under uncertainty. Notice the contrast between weakness and the master. The indecisive follower offers vague, safe platitudes. They say, "We should proceed with caution and wait for more data." They refuse to commit to any concrete recommendation because they fear being blamed for a mistake. The strategic leader cuts through the fog. Instead of retreating into ambiguity, they analyze the terrain, identify the single critical leverage point, and present a bold, calculated maneuver with clear risk mitigation. In a modern business setting, ask a team lead in an office, "Our primary competitor just launched a lower-priced product. What is our countermove?" If they spend 30 minutes reciting buzzwords without offering a single decisive recommendation, you have discovered an administrator, not a leader. They will freeze when decisive execution is required. Pay attention to this diagnostic. Do not look for agreeable consensus in your advisors. Look for the clarity to make difficult choices when information is incomplete. That is the third of 5 tests. Later in this video, we will see how people react when sudden danger strikes. What happens next in the 4th test reveals true bravery. Crisis does not create character. It strips away the performance. Inform them of sudden disaster to observe their bravery. In the 4th test, Zhuge Liang would suddenly announce an unexpected catastrophe, an enemy flank attack, a burned grain depot, or a severed supply line. He watched the officer's eyes and posture in the first 3 seconds. This is where the trap is sprung. The coward panics. Their eyes dart across the room. Their voice trembles. In their panic, they immediately look for scapegoats or prepare their own escape route. The disciplined commander inhales slowly and assesses the field. Their posture settles deeper into the earth. They do not complain about the disaster. Instead, they immediately assess the available assets and say, "Here is our immediate move. Deploy the vanguard." Picture a modern corporate crisis in an executive boardroom. A major server outage occurs 10 minutes before an earnings call. The amateur panics, sends frantic messages, and tries to deflect responsibility. But the sovereign professional calmly diagnoses the root cause, coordinates the recovery team, and manages client communication with total composure. Here is the tactical protocol for test 4. Notice how people react to small daily emergencies, a canceled flight, a lost file, or a sudden deadline shift. How they handle small friction is exactly how they will handle major collapse. That is the 4th of 5 tests. I will explain how lowered inhibition completes this diagnostic in a moment. The final test is what brings this all together. When social inhibition falls away, the hidden appetite of the ego steps into the light. Lower their defenses to observe their nature. In the 5th test, Zhuge Liang invited associates to private banquets where wine flowed freely. He understood that social conditioning and etiquette act as a heavy iron door holding back the ego. When that door is unlocked through relaxation or wine, what is truly inside the house walks out. Notice the contrast between weakness and the master. The deceitful individual becomes arrogant, reckless, and boastful. They gossip about absent friends, demean service staff, and reveal deep-seated resentments. As a result, their pleasant daytime mask dissolves into petulance. The genuine master retains their dignity. Even when fully relaxed, they remain respectful, generous, and mindful of others. Their internal discipline is not a costume. It is their core identity. In modern life, this test applies at restaurant dinners, social drinks, or after-work gatherings. Watch how someone treats the restaurant waiter when they think no one of importance is watching. Watch how they speak about their business partners once their guard is down. What they show you in those relaxed moments is who they truly are. Here is the tactical protocol for Test 5. Never form a major partnership with someone until you've observed them in an informal, relaxed environment with their social guard lowered. That is the 5th of 5 tests. The diagnostic of human character gets answered last, and it deserves to. Before we conclude, examine the single principle that ties all 5 tests together. You cannot protect yourself from betrayal by hoping for the best. You protect yourself through diagnostic discernment. Stop evaluating human beings on their resumes, their charisma, or their agreeable smiles. Charm is a performance. True loyalty is a tested daily discipline. Remember the 5 tests. 1. Probe with right and wrong to observe their principles. 2. Press with argument to observe their composure. 3. Consult on strategy to observe their courage. 4. Announce sudden crisis to observe their bravery. 5. Lower their inhibition to observe their nature. Master these 5 diagnostics, and you will see through the masks of those around you before you place your trust in their hands. Choose the relationships that matter most in your life. Apply these diagnostic lenses, protect your inner circle, and build alliances that stand unshaken when the storm arrives.